Okay, the Supreme Court this morning ruled in the case of a Colorado bakery that the baker who did not want to create a wedding cake for a gay couple's marriage, or actually for the post-marriage celebration, they had been married for a while, that he was not given a proper hearing by the authorities of the state of Colorado. They did, so let's just, understand this with some dispassion. This was a 7-2 decision. I believe Sotomayor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg were the two dissenters, as I recall. Nate says yes, must be. So, and I would love to read their dissent. I have not had the opportunity to do that yet. I'm not sure it's even been published yet. But the essence of the case was not that this baker, as is being portrayed in right-wing media and even in some of the corporate media, the essence of the case, the decision was not that he has the right to say, no, I'm not going to create this artistic work under the First Amendment, under the Freedom of Expression Clause of the First Amendment. Now, some people are arguing this. This is not what the Supreme Court decided this morning. What they are arguing is that we all have the right, artists in particular have the right to refuse commissions. Now, again, this was not what the Supreme Court decided, to the best of my understanding of this case. But it will be something that the Supreme Court will decide at some point in the near future, probably. There are several other cases working their way up the docket that are going to be more narrowly decided than this, more broadly decided than this. So there are two possible arguments that this baker could make. Number one, and he made this argument. He said, this gay couple, they're welcome to buy any cake in my store. I would be glad to sell them a cake. I am not going to use my artistic ability, which I learned from my mentor on how to decorate a cake, to decorate a cake that says happy gay marriage, or, good luck, Ken and Paul, or David and I forget the other guy's name. He said, that is artistic expression. And as an artist, I can choose how I want to express myself. Now, that's actually a fairly strong argument. Again, it's not the argument that the court decided on. But that's a fairly strong argument. I mean, if you were a cake baker and Richard Spencer came to you and said, I would like you to make a cake for me with a Nazi swastika, on it, that says, Heil Richard, may the Nazis live forever. As an artist, or if he wanted you to do a painting like that, or whatever, do you have the right to say no? I think the answer is fairly clearly that you do have the right to say no. So had this case been decided on those grounds, I am guessing that's the way it would have gone, although I'm not sure. The other argument, the other First Amendment argument, is the religious argument, which this baker also tried to make. He made both these arguments. The court didn't decide it on either one, as far as I can tell. Again, this was just a couple hours ago, and I have not yet read the decision or the dissents, but I fully intend to, and we can dig into this a little more tomorrow, and that's why I'm putting this somewhat in a hypothetical context. The religious argument is, I am exercising my religious preference, and therefore the state cannot force me to do something, because the state, under both the First Amendment and under the separation of powers clause, there's another word for it. I'm sorry, I'm not on the tip of my tongue, but the other part of the Constitution that says that there shall be no state religion established. That under those two parts of the Constitution, the state may not impose on me a religion, and similarly, the state may not take from me my religion unless they can demonstrate in a court of law that it's not actually a religion, that it's actually a cult of some kind, that it's a you know, and this is done not commonly but occasionally with David Koresh type cult leaders, or Charles Manson type cult leaders, where they claim that they're exercising religion. In fact, more often than not, they claim that they're exercising Jesus's religion, when in fact, you know, they're running a scam, they're running a con. So, you know, the government has a limited power to say, no, you're not a religion. And most of that power is focused in the area of whether or not they're going to grant you tax-exempt status. But there can also be, you know, legal penalties. So here he is saying, my religion says that only men can marry women, and vice versa, that men can't marry men. And therefore, my religion prevents me from designing this cake using my artistic free expression. And what the Supreme Court ruled, as I understand it, is that those two arguments were not adequately and appropriately addressed and responded to by the authorities of the state of Colorado. And therefore, we find on behalf of the baker, because he got basically screwed by the courts in Colorado. Not that the courts were right or wrong, and this is why it was a 7-2 decision. Was, you know, even the majority of the liberals on the court, well, half the liberals on the court, said no. So, but this raises an interesting question. I mean, Andrew Sullivan, for example, who is both gay and a Republican, says, it writes today in New York Magazine, and this was before the decision came down. He was in anticipation of this writing. He said, it always worries me when gays advocate taking freedom away from other people. It worries me as a matter of principle. It also unsettles me because some gay activists do not seem to realize that the position they're taking is a particularly dangerous one for a tiny and historically despised minority. The blithe unconcern for the First Amendment in the war on hate speech, for example, ignores the fact that for centuries the First Amendment was the only defense the gay minority ever had. And now, with the first taste of power, we're restricting the rights of others in this respect? Ugh. Endorse the state's right to coerce speech or conscience, and you have ceded a principle that can so easily come back to haunt you. So, you know, and here's another one. This is from the National Legal Director of the ACLU. This is David Cole from NewYorkBooks.com. What if a wedding photographer who has to be present at a ceremony in order to provide her services objects to same-sex marriage? Should bakeries or photographers be permitted to refuse their services to an interracial couple or an interfaith couple? Could a bakery refuse to make a birthday cake for a black family because its owner objects to celebrating black lives? Now we're getting into some really interesting territory here. You know, what is the beginning and end of free expression? What is the beginning and end, you know, where do they start and where do they go? Things like, you know, how is the wrong word? Well, yeah, how much power should the state appropriately take onto itself to, on the one hand, prevent hate speech, which, you know, we're not arguably doing at all. I mean, look at the tiki torches in Charlottesville, West Virginia. And on the other hand, you know, protecting minorities, protecting groups who are not popular. It's a really interesting question.